Now we're going to look at what happens when you have an equation that's got a variable on both sides. So here's some examples. We'll take the first one. 8x plus 3 equals 15x minus 17. So there's an x on the left side, an x on the right side. It's in both sides. We cannot use the history of x to solve this, but what we can do is we can use the subtraction property of equality to move the x's from one side to the other. So this time I'm going to try to move the 8x over to the other side. And how do I do that? If I were to subtract 8x from each side of this equation, 8x minus 8x leaves 0, so that's just 3. And here I have 15x minus 8x, that's 7x, and then minus 17. So effectively I had an x over here, but I moved it to the other side and combined it with the 15x. Now notice also that by subtracting 8x from each side, I left x with a positive coefficient, and that's always a good idea. So now we have 3 equals 7x minus 17, and we can solve that by adding 17 to both sides. We'll get 20, and 7x minus 17 plus 17 is 7x. We divide each side by 7, and here we get x, and here we get 20 divided by 7. Now let's take a look on the other side. 9x minus 2 equals negative 3x plus 10. There again, we have variables on both sides. And you might be able to notice that if we were to add 3x to both sides, we would be left with a positive coefficient of x. So let's do that. We'll add 3x to each side. 3x plus 9x is 12x minus 2. Negative 3x plus 3x is 0. So this leaves us with 10. Now we have a two-step equation. We can add 2 to each side, and we have 12x equals 12. We divide each side by 12, and we'll get x equals 1. And there's our solution. Now let's try a few more. Here we have x on both sides, but we also see that we need to use the distributive property to expand these parentheses, and then we can move the x's from one side to the other. So we'll multiply this out. So this is 5x minus 15 equals 4x plus 2. And our choice is going to be to subtract 4x from each side. We're left with x minus 15 equals 2. We can add 15 to each side, and we'll get x equals 17. In the next example, we need to use the distributive property on each side before we move forward. So the left side, 9 times x is 9x, minus 9 times 1 is 9. That equals 3 times 2x is 6x. 3 times 7 is 21. We'll subtract 6x from both sides. So that will give us 3x minus 9 equals 21. Whoops, that should be 21. Then we can add 9 to each side, and we'll get 3x equals 30. And divide each side by 3, and we get x equals 10. And there's our solution.